I received harassing and threatening messages on my phone daily. I felt like I had been terrorized.
Cruiser's window, she uses the N-word.
Megan wasn't looked at like a rookie cop to be trained and promoted. She was looked at as a piece of meat to be sexualized and
Shocking findings of sexual misconduct rocked the Laverne Police Department. 5 officers and the police chief all fired.
One of those officers, Megan Hall, became the face of the scandal and the target of nationwide ridicule, and she's now filed a federal.
A significant sex scandal has caused a major uproar in the small town of Laverne, Tennessee. The scandal involves patrol officer Megan Hall from the Laverne Police Department, who was fired along with 4 other officers due to her involvement in steamy relationships with these officers both on and off duty. The officers implicated in the scandal are patrol officers Juan Lugo Perez, Lewis Powell, Detective Seneca Shields, and Sergeant Henry Time McGowan. Additionally, 3 other officers, namely Patrick Magliacco, Larry Holliday, and Gavin Showborough, were suspended from their duties as a result of the investigation.
to be trained and promoted. She was looked at as a piece of meat to be sexualized and
It all began when the mayor of Laverne, Jason Cole, received a tip that one of the officers, Megan Hall, was involved in affairs with several of her fellow cops. The subsequent investigation uncovered some shocking details. Magliacco confessed to having had sex with Hall on multiple occasions, and even disclosed that Hall had kissed his wife, Amy, after they discovered they had an open marriage. During the investigation, Magliacco shared that he and his wife had been in an open relationship with Hall since the spring of 2022. He also mentioned that Hall's husband caught them in the act with his wife, and he didn't seem comfortable with the situation. Officer Lewis Powell was also implicated by Magliacco. He informed investigators that Hall had talked to him about Powell's intimate attributes and revealed that they had engaged in oral sex while on duty. Powell, who was married, initially denied having any relations with Hall. He repeatedly claimed that everyone knew she had multiple partners. However, realizing he couldn't avoid the truth, he eventually confessed.
I received harassing and threatening messages on my phone daily. I felt like I had been terrorized.
Detective Seneca Shields initially denied having any relations with Hall, but under continued questioning by the investigators, he eventually confessed that they had engaged in oral sex while on duty in the department's gym. Magliacco further revealed that he once caught Holliday and Hall kissing at a football party held at Holliday's place. However, Holliday disagreed with this account. He explained to the investigators that he had invited Hall and other officers to his home to watch football, and although there was heavy drinking, nothing inappropriate happened at the party. Later on, Holliday admitted to having sexual relations with Hall multiple times, mentioning that they would meet in hotel rooms for their encounters. Officer McGowan also admitted to going to Hall's house with another female officer and exposing his genitals. But the most scandalous part of this whole affair occurred at a Memorial Day hot tub party at a boathouse. The party was hosted by Officer Stats, who owned the boat, and it had a Girls Gone Wild style theme. Not only were the department's police officers invited, but their wives and children were also present at the party. During the event, Magliacco was seen pressuring Hall to consume vodka in the hot tub, right before she removed her top. Another officer, Durham Stats, intervened to stop Hall from drinking and quickly covered her up to protect her. Both Durham and Stats asserted that they never had any inappropriate relations with Hall. Throughout the investigation, Hall initially denied having any illicit affairs with the men in her department, except for Holliday. However, she did confess to sending nude images to other officers on shift, including Holliday, Magliacco, and Officer Showborough. According to the report, Hall also confirmed that she had sexual relations with Powell and Juan Lugo Perez.
She did say no on several occasions. Miss Hall tried to get out of this relationship, and she was not allowed.
At first, Lugo denied engaging in any inappropriate acts with Hall, but eventually, Hall admitted to having an affair with Lugo in a motel after they met at a go-kart center. As the entire scandal was thoroughly investigated, it was no surprise that Hall was ultimately fired from her position in the department. Lugo, Powell, Shields, and McGowan were also fired because they violated police procedure and lied during the investigation. On the other hand, Holliday, Magliocco, and Showborough were suspended from their positions as a consequence of the investigation.
You know, you could have said no. I get it. But my response to them is that I did say no.
Rose Valentino, a 14-year veteran of the Cincinnati police, was fired due to a racial outburst that was captured on her body camera. Valentino, who had appeared frequently on the reality TV series Police Women of Cincinnati in 2011, had a meltdown while on duty in a marked police car on April 5th. The trigger for her anger was apparently traffic-related. Valentino headed to the District 3 police station to complete a report. Upon arriving at the station, she noticed several cars lined up, waiting to pick up students from Western Hills University High School. Trying to clear the way, Valentino activated her lights and siren, signaling the vehicles to move. However, when they didn't respond, she became audibly furious. She rolled down her window and instructed the drivers to move. According to the report, a black male student walked by and expressed his displeasure by giving Valentino the middle finger. This escalated the situation further. In her anger, Valentino used a racial slur, which was recorded on her body camera, as she responded to the teenage student's actions.
Window, she uses the N-word.
As a result of her actions, Valentino was fired from her role as a police officer. She tried to defend herself, claiming that she doesn't hold any racial biases and doesn't use racial slurs. She insisted that the outburst was a one-time occurrence and directed solely at the teenager who provoked her. However, this wasn't the first time Valentino found herself in trouble. In 2020, she faced charges of domestic violence and criminal damage after a fight with her sister. Although she pleaded not guilty, her police powers were suspended, and she was given an administrative assignment. The charge was eventually reduced to disorderly conduct, and she was ordered by the court to attend anger management classes and serve 2 years of probation. Despite this past incident, Valentino's recent outburst, filled with profanity over a minor traffic issue, shows that she still struggles to control her emotions. The interim police chief, Teresa Thie, recommended Valentino's termination to the city officials, and the recommendation was approved. As a result, Valentino was dismissed from her position. In a statement, Teresa Thie emphasized that such hateful speech would not be tolerated from anyone, whether they are sworn officers or civilian employees within the Cincinnati Police Department.
The law, and it's unclear which side of it the suspect in this case is on. She was a 26-year veteran of the Los Angeles Police Department, by all appearances a model cop, yet Stephanie Lazarus now faces murder charges. Prosecutors say that almost 25 years ago, she beat and shot the wife of an ex-boyfriend, and that DNA evidence proves it. David Wright.
This case revolves around a murder that was driven by love, jealousy, and an almost obsessive mindset. On February 24, 1986, in Van Nuys, Louisiana, Sherry, the daughter of Dr. Nels Rasmussen, fell victim to a brutal murder in her condo. She endured 3 gunshot wounds, severe bludgeoning, and was left for dead. This tragic event devastated her family, particularly her father and her husband, John Rutan, to whom she had been married for only 3 months. Sherry shared an exceptionally close bond with her father, and before her death, she had confided in him that she believed someone was stalking her, putting her life in jeopardy. That someone turned out to be an LAPD officer named Stephanie J. Lazarus. Dr. Rasmussen was heartbroken and determined to see his daughter's murderer brought to justice. However, despite Sherry's warning, the lead detective on the case disregarded Dr. Rasmussen's suspicions. The detective attributed Sherry's murder to a failed robbery attempt, dismissing any evidence that hinted at a different explanation. Many people suspected that the police intentionally overlooked certain aspects to shield one of their colleagues. The motive behind this heinous murder ties back to Sherry's husband, John Rutan. Before marrying Sherry, John and Stephanie had a complex history together from their time at UCLA, where they both graduated in 1982. Although they weren't exactly college sweethearts, their relationship was marked by an on-again, off-again nature. Later on, John met Sherry Rasmussen, who was rapidly advancing in her career as a director of nursing at Glendale Adventist Medical Center. They hit it off immediately and got married in 1985. Although John seemed to have moved on from his previous relationship with Stephanie, she couldn't let go. Stephanie became a constant presence in their lives, causing tension in the couple's relationship despite Sherry's concerns. Before marrying Sherry, John and Stephanie had one last intimate encounter, possibly seeking closure. However, Stephanie's obsession with John persisted, leading to alarming behavior. One day, she showed up at Sherry's workplace and ominously told her, "If I can't have John, no one else will." The day of the murder, Sherry called in sick from work, while John went to his job as usual. When he returned home, he was met with a horrifying scene. Broken objects scattered around, a bloody handprint beside the panic button, and Sherry's lifeless body on the living room floor. The police found a bite mark on Sherry's arm and collected a sample for DNA analysis. Unfortunately, at that time, the DNA testing technology wasn't advanced enough, and the case eventually went cold. The case was reopened 23 years later when the LAPD acquired improved technology for DNA analysis. They tested the bite mark evidence and found that the suspect was a woman. The detectives discovered Stephanie Lazarus's name in the files and decided to pursue her as a potential suspect. In May 2009, investigators collected a sample of Lazarus's saliva from a discarded coffee cup and compared it to the cotton swab taken from the crime scene. The results matched. Subsequently, Stephanie underwent interrogation, was officially booked as a suspect, and brought to trial. During the trial, prosecutors argued that Lazarus's actions were driven by jealousy when her former lover, Rutan, chose to marry Rasmussen. Eventually, Superior Court Judge Robert Perry sentenced Lazarus to 25 years to life for first-degree murder, and she received an additional 2-year sentence for the personal use of a firearm. This resolution brought closure to a 2-decade-old case, and justice was finally served for the Rasmussen family.
I'm going to say that I think she was a nurse. I can't even remember how he said he met her. It's been